This podcast is brought to you by the School of Advanced Study, University of London. All of our podcasts are available from our website, www.sas.ac.uk.
Okay, we will get started. We're a nice small group, so I've actually opted not to kill you with lots and lots of PowerPoint slides. My name is Saiyada Smith. I'm a careers advisor. I work within the University of London and work with School of Advanced Studies students to support you with your ongoing career development. Now, you guys are here because I'm hoping that you're considering studying with us. Now, in order for me to get a bit of a sense of where you are in terms of your applications, can I have a quick show of hands if you are thinking of applying for a master's? Okay. Anyone considering a PhD as a longer-term plan or an academic career as a longer-term plan? Okay, that's fine. Okay. So really the purpose of the session, we've got about 20 minutes before we will have the opportunity to meet and talk to some alumni who have studied with us. The purpose of this session is really to talk about the value of postgraduate education within the job market. Now, you don't need me to tell you, you have to pick up the news at the moment, and there are lots and lots of focus in terms of the impact of the current economic climate on graduates, and perhaps the challenges that graduates are facing in the labour market. So really, my kind of purpose is to give you, I guess, some pluses, but also to make you aware of some of the minuses of doing postgraduate study, but really maybe try and fast forward you a year from now, when you are re-entering the job market, what sort of impact postgraduate study will have on your job hunting. Now, I wish I had a crystal ball, because I could tell you exactly how the labour market will fare, but I don't. So what I can do is draw on some labour market information at the moment, and really to try and set the scene in terms of what's happening broadly within different sectors. So I guess the first question is, should you do postgraduate study? Now, if I had £1 every time I've had this question from students, I'd be very nicely retired and living in the south of France. But I'm not a gambling person. I guess the question of whether there is any value to postgraduate study in the job market really comes down to why you are considering postgraduate study. So, there would be 3 things that I would consider doing if I were in your shoes. 1, I would think about what you're studying, but also what kind of roles you are thinking about longer term. And actually, is there any value of postgraduate study within those particular roles? So to give you an example, if you are, for example, thinking of pursuing a career within international development, now, to work within development, it's pretty much a prerequisite that you will have undertaken some sort of a master's course. Likewise, there are other similar areas where actually it is a prerequisite that you should have done a relevant master's as a way for you to demonstrate your commitment and motivation for that sector. Now, a really good website to help you begin to clarify that is if you go to the Prospects website, which is prospects.ac.uk. Now, one of the things that you have on Prospects is a wide variety of occupational profiles. And what I would say is look at the occupational profile of the career area that interests you, and actually within that there will be some information around any relevant masters or indeed the value of a master's for that particular sector. I guess the second thing to be thinking about is actually your own reason for doing the master's. Now, sometimes I will come across individuals who will say that perhaps they didn't have a very strong undergraduate degree, and a master's is a way to perhaps address that. Now, that is a fair strategy, but there are some employers within the job market, especially those recruiting for graduate trainee schemes. Some of their prerequisite is 2-1 or above. So if that is purely your reason for doing the master's, then you may want to kind of reconsider that. A really strong argument for pursuing a master's course is the fact that you will have a much deeper understanding of that particular subject matter. And so if you are looking at pursuing your career in a field that is quite specialist, that is a little bit niche, like development that we talked about earlier, then actually there is a very good synergy and fit for you to be pursuing your master's. However, another strong reason for doing a master's course is actually in the UK, 80% of jobs are open to graduates of any degree or course background. And the reason for this is that employers really value the transferable skills that individuals can offer. You know, most roles will require you to be very good at project management, very strong at building relationships with customers, perhaps being able to work independently as well as part of a team. Now, what you find is that at undergraduate level, there is a lot of structure to your studies. So, you know, your timetables are set out, assignments are all set out, and one of the kind of really strong benefits that employers state of kind of postgraduate study is that you start managing your own time. So, you know, you're suddenly managing quite significant research projects, you're kind of almost implementing structure to your day. And according to a survey by the Association of Graduate Recruiters, which is kind of the umbrella organization to which a number of graduate employers belong, they surveyed 211 of their members. And actually 73% of the members said that they have a preference for students with a postgraduate course in the job market. And the reason for this is that those students holding a postgraduate qualification have much more rounded skills that they can bring into the workplace. So, you know, things like managing large research projects. What that says to an employer is that you're self-motivated. You know, you can see things through from start to completion. And within that, you develop strong skills of organization and time management and so on. So actually, employers really value that. And one of the strong benefits of doing a master's course is that it will enable you to not only develop and hone in these skills, but actually it gives you that advantage in the job market. I guess one of the things that you may want to think about in terms of the master's itself is that if you are thinking about applying for a graduate trainee scheme, okay, a number of employers don't have specific recruitment schemes just for master's students. So sometimes what I find is that master's students will say to me, but actually, in fact, I'm not really being differentiated in the market. I don't really have a competitive advantage. Why is that? And actually what I would say to you is that there's been quite a bit of research that has been undertaken, not to see, you know, how kind of students fare in the recruitment process. The recruitment process is a very, very fair, and you know, everybody goes through the same selection. But within employment itself, Deloitte, who are a large professional services company, they published some research, very interesting research, and they actually said that once their trainees had completed the initial graduate training program, candidates holding a postgraduate qualifications actually fast-tracked their progression within the organization. And purely because there were far more skills and there was a mature outlook to the work, and actually the progression within the organization was a lot faster. So one of the areas, you know, you may not see return on your investment immediately, But an area where you will really see a return on your investment, having done a master's, is once you are in the workplace, a lot of these useful skills that you have developed will enable you to progress a lot quicker upwards within the organizations that you're thinking about. I guess the final thing that I kind of want to touch on in terms of masters is really think about where you do your masters. And I'm going to speak objectively as a careers advisor. I think do a lot of research in terms of various institutions and really think about what kind of jobs do people from this institution or this particular program end up doing. And one of the things that you will find sort of this evening is just a range of roles the alumni from SAS kind of go on and do. So we have people doing a range of interesting roles. And you may want to think about actually what did they gain in terms of skills and experiences that have enabled these individuals to undertake the roles that we are going to be talking about. I would say that the way we would support you here at School of Advanced Studies is in 3 ways. So one, when you join the program here, you will have access to advisors from the career service, and we do a lot of one-to-one work. We talk to you about the practicalities of putting together a CV, making job applications, clarifying whether you want to pursue an academic or a non-academic career, whether you want to do a PhD, and access to those conversations is very much available to you. The second way that we support you is we run a number of workshops. Now we're aware that not all of you will be on campus at the same time, but a lot of our workshops are delivered using webinars, and they are an hour long, and you can log in from anywhere and access the workshops on a whole host of different topics. And the final way that we support you is that the Career Service belongs to kind of an umbrella organization called the Careers Group. And the Careers Group organizes a whole host of different careers events. So you can attend networking events. We've got one coming up in careers in international development. We've had events in things like careers in arts administration, career options using languages, or a whole host of careers sort of sessions that you can attend and have an opportunity to network with and learn from people who are currently working within those professions. So that's one aspect of how we can help you. Obviously, the other aspect, and some of you may or may not have thought about this fully, but another very possible career path open to you guys is to go on and do a PhD and subsequently consider pursuing an academic career. I guess, there are many considerations in terms of doing a PhD, and if this is indeed something that you're thinking about after your master's, then I would say, again, think about your specialism, the area of research that you're interested in. Really think about whether there is any currency, with that particular research. Does it open up international collaborations for you? What about the faculty from which you will undertake your research? What about the connections and the reputation of that particular supervisor? So some of those things are really worth thinking about, because actually 4 years is a long time, and you really want to make sure that you're putting in the right foundations to enable you to complete your PhD. I guess the other thing that you may want to think about is what other opportunities will you get whilst you are doing your PhD? So will you have opportunities to teach, for example? And if you are thinking of an academic career, then teaching is very much something that your future employers will look for on your CVs. So you may want to think about what extra, experience that you can tag on whilst you are doing your PhD. And finally, think about whether there is a commercial value to your research. So, often we find when students complete their PhDs, they are yet at another transition point. So then they are thinking of, do I go on and apply? What kind of postdoc opportunities? Or do I actually consider a research role or even a non-research role, but outside of academia? And I guess one of the things that you may want to think about whilst you are doing your PhD is what sort of opportunities are they for you to kind of transfer and have that flexibility to transfer between different sectors. Okay? So those are kind of very quickly some of my tips and some of my considerations for you. I hope it's given you a little bit of food for thought. I guess what I'd like to do is, if you have any specific questions, I would much rather hear from you and try and answer your individual questions. So hit me with it. Do you guys have any questions? Oh, no. Is there anything specific that you would rather I focused on? Now we will do feedback forms at the end of today, and I never see the point of feedback forms at the end, because I'd rather know as we're going along that the session is useful. So, has this been useful? Is this along the right lines of the information that you wanted? Cool. So I guess what I will do is I will suggest 3 websites for you to look at, okay? And they're a good starting point to not only help you kind of consider the pros and cons of doing a master's or a PhD, but also to signpost you to resources around funding and so on, which I imagine for some of you may well be quite a major consideration. So I guess the first website, I will just repeat it, that I mentioned earlier, which is the Prospects website, which is prospects.ac.uk. Now, 2 benefits of this website. The first one is you have a wide range of occupational profiles that you can look at. So, if you are thinking about particular job areas, you get lots of information on this particular site about the kinds of jobs, related opportunities, where you can look for jobs, and crucially, you can test out whether having a postgraduate qualification will have the right impact or not. And I think that should be a really key consideration for all of us in this room. The second website that I will suggest is a website called Hobson's Postgraduate. Okay, if you just do a Google search for it, it's run by a company called Hobson's. They produce a whole host of careers information, and one of the areas that they have a lot of information on is postgraduate study. Now, I would say that this is a great resource. It has 2 things that I would primarily look out for. The first thing I would look out for is their section on funding opportunities. And for those of you who think or believe this is something that you'd like to kind of really think about or plays within the decision-making process, then really look at the Hobson's website, which is a really useful start. The second thing I would look at on the Hobson's site is they have some nice case studies, or some nice stories around the impact of postgraduate study on careers. And I don't know about you guys, but I find it really helpful to read case studies and to hear stories, as we will in just a second from the alumni session, about the impact postgraduate study has had, especially if you are aiming longer term to be in these sorts of positions. So that would be the second website that I would really consider looking at. Now the third thing that I would look at is a website called Careers Tagged. Okay, so TAGGED. And basically, what I like about Careers Tagged is it's like Google, but for career-specific information. So a whole host of different sectors have careers and postgraduate study information within that. There's also a really comprehensive section on funding your masters, and so on. So, instead of going on Google where you can get a whole host of different links, I would say start with Careers Tagged, because it is Google with careers information, so it's a lot more focused and targeted. And finally, for those of you who are thinking about PhDs, or are a little bit undecided about whether this is indeed something you want to do, then I would look at a website called Vitae, V-I-T-A-E. It's a fantastic website. It has really useful information about sort of careers and researchers, really nice case studies and profiles of people both within academia and outside. So I hope that's been useful. I will be around after the alumni session, so if you want to kind of corner me and ask me any questions, please do. I've hurt my foot, so I'm not going anywhere terribly fast, so you will definitely get hold of me. Is that all right?